Some call him son, brother, uncle. Jamie calls him Brad, her husband, and Brianna and Jillian call him Daddy.
We're still in shock.
Yeah,
we are. It really happened. It's unreal.
Protect and serve, and you know, Brad did that till the very, very end.
He was so many things to so many people. Good morning and thank you for joining us. We are honoring the life of Detective Brad Lancaster. Detective Lancaster was shot and killed in the line of duty this past Monday near the Kansas Speedway. Paying their final respects today, not only members of the Kansas City area police and sheriff's departments, we are talking about officers and deputies from all across the country. They will be joined at Children's Mercy Park by hundreds, if not thousands of people from the Kansas City community. Here's a look right now from SkyTracker. People who Detective Lancaster impacted throughout his time with the Kansas City Police Department will be there, and many others who might not have known him personally, but have been moved by his sacrifice. You can see this look right now at the park where the funeral services will be held in about 45 minutes. People have been streaming in all morning long. The gates opened at about 9 o'clock this morning. 41 Action News anchor Richard Sharp is inside Children's Mercy Park right now as guests are filing in. Richard, what have you been seeing so far this morning?
Well, just the amount of people you were talking about, Rhiannon, is impressive in and of itself, and that's why they had to push this whole thing back about 15 minutes. Let me jump out of the way and kind of walk you through the setup here. That people right in this section right here are friends and family of not only the Lancasters, but other KCK police officers. So you can see how many people are here. As we pan down, you can see where all those officers are lined up. That's where the procession will come through into the stadium. And then as you zoom out, you can see this huge, big white stadium, so to speak, a platform where a lot of the officers from KCK will be. And then, of course, the family up there on the stage. So this is where the service is going to be held. And there are boxes for fireworks, too, for part of the service. There will be singing, there will be speaking from Chief Ziegler as well as some others. So it is very somber here, and what is impressive, like you talked about, is just the amount of officers and the amount of different law enforcement personnel. I've seen them, federal agents too. I saw some from the U.S. Marshals here. We've seen people come from all over Kansas and Missouri filing in, all very somber. And some people for this is a reunion. You've seen a lot of retired officers come back for this as well. One of the interesting things is talking to these people. I got to speak with the fire chief of Kansas City, Kansas, who is here today, who says he knew Brad Lancaster personally. Take a listen.
It's important to be here because the police department, the fire department, we look at each other as really kind of all one entity. There's a lot of risk associated with the, and I don't want to call it a job because those that choose to do this type of work, it's more than a job, but it's a brotherhood that we work together, we rely on each other, we trust each other, and so we're going to honor each other in this situation.
So it's just impressive, and that's the police chief, or excuse me, the fire chief for Kansas City, John Paul Jones. We've spoken with other people in the audience too, and one of the interesting things here, everybody knows that Detective Lancaster was a huge fan of the Kansas City Royals. We've seen some of the kids of some of the officers' families filing in today with hats for the Royals in honor of him. And the other touching components of this, they have a video playing in the big monitor here, and it just has a bunch of pictures, slideshows of Detective Lancaster, his family, his friends. And I was told that that was put together by his friends at the police department with music that his family had chosen. So very touching, just an emotional event. Again, they had to push it back about 15 minutes to make sure everyone had time to get into this event this morning. Rhiannon?
It's no doubt going to be a very tough day for that and for the entire community, of course, his family, his friends. Now, we know that the KCK mayor, Mark Holland, he will be officiating the funeral. Police Chief Terry Ziegler will be speaking. Also, the Fraternal Order of Police president will be speaking. Richard, do we know if any of the family members will get up and speak?
You know, I don't know that yet. I suspect so, but we haven't been told. We have been told that they are going to try and keep on time as far as the length of this. We're told anywhere from an hour 15 to an hour and 30. And the reason is that the family said Brad probably would not have wanted it to go any longer. But it's just impressive. We don't know who exactly else is going to speak, if there are going to be many more people, or if they're just going to stick with the program at this point. Rhiannon?
Okay, we will come back to you in just a little bit. Thank you, Richard, for that. Now, the casket has already arrived at Children's Mercy Park. It got there at about 8:30 this morning. You can see there it was under heavy guard as officers are honoring their fallen brother. And as we wait for today's funeral service to begin, you heard Richard mention it is going to be about 15 minutes later than they expected, just because so many people are coming out to pay their respects. So we want to give you a glimpse into Detective Brad Lancaster's life. He truly led a life of service, and this is a career choice he made very early on in his life. Take a look.
Detective Brad Lancaster grew up just north of the metro in Weston, Missouri. His childhood dream, to become a police officer.
He knew he wanted to be a police officer or go into law enforcement ever since he was in elementary school.
He accomplished those dreams. After graduating from the Enforcement Academy in Missouri Western, Lancaster trained with the Buchanan County Sheriff's Department.
He came with a zeal that you really love to see in students that are going into law enforcement and that later turn out to be tremendous police officers.
In the 20 years since, he spent his life trying to protect others.
You know, when you talk about Brad, I think the only way to summarize him is he truly lived a life of service.
A life spent serving our community and our country.
You know, he served 4 years in the U.S. military and the U.S. Air Force. He served 9 years with I believe, the Platte County Sheriff's Department, and he served 9 years with us.
Impacting the lives of anyone he came across.
Brad was the best of us. I mean, he, when it came to just running calls or investigations, he was always handled everything very professionally. He was the epitome of what I believe our department stands for, you know, courtesy first, safety always.
His biggest role in life was his dedication to his wife and his 2 young daughters, ages 8 and 10.
He was a good guy, a family man. He's got 2 little girls, his wife, mother. They're all hurting, and we're going to be there for them and do everything that we can.
Now the entire Kansas City metro community is coming together to honor a man who spent his life helping others.
Get the thoughts and prayers and keep them coming as we go through this. You know, keep his family in your thoughts and prayers, and all of our officers.
No doubt all of us thinking of his family and friends and everyone who knew him today. 41 Action News anchor Jane Monreal is live along what will be the procession route after the funeral. And Jane, there are already people out there with flags trying to honor Detective Lancaster.
Yeah, Rhiannon, just behind me is the American Legion Riders, known to hold flags in tribute to fallen officers and military members. A moving scene along Village West Parkway. And as you can see, into Children's Mercy Park, officers, deputies, troopers are still pouring in to the service, and we're seeing members from all over the place. We actually found a few officers with uniforms from Dallas, and also spotted some officers just arrived from Grandview as well as Lee's Summit. So plenty of people wearing their blues, their Class A uniforms, paying their respects here to the fallen detective Brad Lancaster, and it is definitely a solemn scene, a moving one at that, with all of the American flags, and then also looking at what looks to be probably the front of the procession, all of these SUV patrol units from KCK-PD, and that looks like it will be the front of the procession. So obviously all of those cars are just parked for the service, but we will be following the procession as it leaves here at Children's Mercy Park and down Village West Parkway along Legends. So we'll be following this, Rhiannon, throughout the day, but it is very somber yet moving in the tribute that we are seeing so far this morning. Back to you.
It kind of gives you chills seeing all those flags and seeing all those vehicles for the procession, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's absolutely, that's what I got when I first drove up and exited off 435 and drove, and I didn't expect them to see the riders here so early and lined up, and it brought tears to your eyes as a patriot and as someone who feels for their law enforcement, our fallen heroes.
And you know, that's very important to remember, Jane, because, you know, our first responders, they put their lives on the lines for us every single day. And whether you live in KCK, whether you live in Overland Park or Kansas City, Missouri, it doesn't matter. We all are a part of this community, so we all feel these things. What are the people out there saying about this today?
You hear it all the time. You know, we feel we are brothers and sisters in this first responders world, and they'll say it all the time. I am married to a firefighter, and he says it's what we sign up for. It is what we do. And you don't expect them to not return home. You just, they just do their work, and they'll say over and over again that this is what they sign up for. And they want to keep our neighborhoods and our cities safe. And this is when they come together. This is when they unite and feel each other's hearts broken.
Absolutely, a lot of broken hearts today, Jane. Thank you for that. We'll come back to you in just a little bit. We do want to mention immediately following the funeral today at around 12:30, maybe 12:45, it depends on how long the funeral goes, there will be a lot of roads closed following the funeral as the procession does make its way out of the Legends. It is going to go from Children's Mercy Park all the way up to his hometown of Weston, Missouri. That is where he will be laid to rest. It will start at the stadium, as I mentioned. It will circle onto State Avenue through parts of the Legends. And then once it gets onto 435, the northbound lanes will be closed until I-29, and then several ramps, if you're trying to get onto 435, will also be closed. So if you're heading in that direction today, if you need to get somewhere, we do have all this information. It is on our website, including on our mobile app. We want to get out to 41 Action News reporter Allie Hoxie. She is also just outside of Children's Mercy Park. Allie, where are you and what are you seeing this morning?
Well, Rhiannon, we're on the west side of the park where everyone's starting to walk in to pay their respects to Detective Lancaster. And if you take a look behind me, you can see the line of people, and you'll see all different types of uniforms, people serving our country in all different ways. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of police officers coming here today to pay their respects, but we've also seen a lot of state troopers, a lot of firefighters, and even just civilians, people who are maybe may be married to a police officer or married to a firefighter, because this all touches us so much in just so many different ways. And there's definitely a stillness here, a silence here as people come out to pay their respects. We spoke with someone who was in the military earlier today, and he was telling us that, you know, we fight overseas to keep everyone here safe at home, and they're fighting right here to keep us safe at home. And it couldn't be more true as people come in here today to pay their respects.
It's certainly not every day you see so many people and see that it is so quiet, as you mentioned, Allie. Just quite a sight to see. You've been out there for a little bit. Any idea how many people you've seen coming in? Would you say hundreds? Would you say maybe more than 1,000 so far?
I would say hundreds. It's hard to say right now. You know, we got here a little around 9:30, and there's already a lot of people inside and a lot of people lining up trying to get in. And, you know, it's hard to say. It's hard to count how many people are here, especially because, you know, usually when you're in crowds, you hear people talking and you can kind of guess how many people are here just by the sound of everything. But like I said, everything is just so quiet and so still that it's just such a stillness that it doesn't feel like people is here, but they're here, and they're definitely here to pay those respects.
Absolutely, to pay respects to our fallen hero. Thank you, Allie, for that. We do want to mention you can watch the service live on our air. If you tune into 30 at the spot right at 11 o'clock, we are going to show you the entire funeral service along with the ceremonial procession that will immediately follow. Again, we're expecting it to last about an hour and 15, hour and 30. And again, it is going to start about 15 minutes late just because there are so many people who want to honor Detective Lancaster. And today, many departments across the metro, you know, they're honoring him because they are filling in so that all of the KCK Police Department can attend the funeral today. Officers from Wyandotte County and other local areas all stepped up. They all answered the call for service to help direct traffic and to even help with the funeral as well.
As we unify together, this is part of the task we have to do so that those officers can attend the funeral. It's about him. It's about our feelings. It's about what it means to us in order to help.
And many officers are wearing a black strip. You see that across their badge. That is also to honor Detective Lancaster. And all week long, there was a vigil earlier this week on Tuesday night, and even last night, hundreds of people showed up at the Trinity Community Church That was for Detective Lancaster's visitation. We even spoke with one sergeant who actually worked very closely with Detective Lancaster, and here's what he had to say.
It's something no officer wants to be a part of, but unfortunately we had to have one. And just to see the city pour out with their hearts, whether it's KCK Fire Department, I mean, we have more agencies of police departments and fire departments around the country, and just to see how the brotherhood and sisterhood comes together.
Sergeant McGee told us that Brad was one of the best in the entire department. He handled every single case with courtesy and respect. Right now we want to go back out live. 41 Action News anchor Richard Sharp inside Children's Mercy Park. And Richard, what are we seeing right now?
Well, right now the whole audience and all the police and fire stood up and started saluting. The flags just came into the area where the ceremony will take place. You're looking at in the middle of sporting field right there. So they brought the flags, and it looks like they may be bringing the casket in here soon, but I'm not exactly sure. This might just be the color guard delivering the flags. The ceremony, but they said something. Everyone in the audience stood up. You know, there's so many police officers and firefighters here. It seems like almost everyone knew what it was, stood up and started to salute, especially the guys on the field who are there, obviously, as part of the ceremony. As we zoom out, you can see them lined up perfectly. When they saluted, everyone just stood up to see what was going on. So this is happening right now. I think it's just in preparation. You know, interesting thing hearing you guys talk about all of this. Oh, I don't know if you can hear that. Those are the bagpipes, obviously, coming onto the field. You know, these tunes, we saw these guys walking around preparing before all this. It's just, you know, these are hollow tunes played on an instrument that it is amazing to see this. Rihanna, you've probably...
Richard, let's listen to it for just a moment. As you just are watching live right now, they just brought in the flag-draped casket of Detective Brad Lancaster with close family and friends following in right behind. Right now, they're observing a moment of silence. Let's listen. You can see some of the officers saluting, and they're all greeting as they take their seats. This funeral expected to get underway in about 25 minutes. You can see some of the young kids in there. We're looking for Detective Lancaster's family. We haven't seen them yet, but this again will get started in about 25 minutes. They had to push it back 15 minutes because of the crowds. It looks like the family is being seated right now. He has 2 daughters. That's another important thing to remember is Detective Lancaster wasn't just a police detective. He also was a huge family man. We spoke to people all week long who said his neighbors told us that he was constantly playing outside with his 2 daughters. Their names Brianna and Jillian. His wife Jamie, who also is from Weston. They'd known each other most of their lives. No doubt the hardest week of their life this week. And we know that he was just the kind of guy that neighbors could call on if they needed something. They said that he would offer to mow their lawns. He was just a community guy who really took his job seriously. And Richard, you mentioned people filing in. He was such a huge Royals fan, people wearing Royals gear. He was so ingrained in this community that it's just easy to see why people loved him so much.
It is, and even chance encounters, people who knew him, not necessarily well, but who saw him from time to time, just had the best memories of him and talked about him so dearly. One of the other things that has in the program here is that he loved to barbecue and loved to use his smokers. In fact, so much so that he built his own. That's the kind of guy he was. He loved outdoors, kayaking, ziplining, rafting, camping. And he took his family on those kind of adventures as well. So knowing all this, knowing he was such a family man, just makes this all the more difficult. I've been speaking with some of the other family members of other detectives who were with him in this department. It was a detective department of about 45 people. The whole police department's about 300, so not huge, but a lot of people knew him very well. And it's been hard on the families who knew him and who associated with his family. So this obviously very devastating, and to see everything right here, how somber it is and how emotional it is just when people talk about him, it is impressive, and it's also hard to watch, but something that's very necessary. Rhiannon?
Richard, are we hearing the bagpipes again? Are they playing them again? It looks like they're moving the casket as well, just shifting it over just a little bit, preparing for this funeral to start.
I think they're shifting it and kind of getting it in place. I think some of the families being seated. You can see some of the officers that are coming in onto the field right now, going to take their place soon after. The bagpipes and the honor guard look like they're still in place as well. And to set all this up, and speaking with some of the organizers here, to set all this up in a week's time is no easy task in and of itself, but to have it go off so flawlessly is really important and obviously very impressive to watch. Makes the music, makes those bagpipes, the drums sound so impressive.
And you know what else makes it so impressive is it's such a gorgeous day out there. It looks like, the sky is blue, the sun is shining down, also honoring Detective Lancaster. It just, a gorgeous day.
Not only that, I mean, it is chilly here, and some of the audience is in the sun. But everyone who's filed in says they don't focus on the cold. They don't focus on anything. They said, hey, it was raining yesterday. This is about as good as weather as we could get it, and the timing could not be more perfect. So you're watching them file in here. They circle the stage there in order to take their seat. Again, it's beautifully orchestrated to watch all this.
Is this the entire KCK Police Department sitting down there, Richard? Do we know?
I don't know if it's the entire, but I want to say it's most of it. You're talking about 300 plus officers according to the department. So I don't know. I haven't really counted all the chairs, but I think it's close to it if it's not. And as far as the audience, I heard you guys talking earlier about how many people they expect. I can tell you just from looking here, there's well over 1,000 at this point. Many friends and families of the police department, police officers from as far away as New York, California are here. So people all over the country. And then, of course, just people who are moved by this. You saw some of them outside. Jane was talking about some of them, Allie as well. But they're here on the inside, too, just watching with their hands over their heart, tear in their eye, basically.
It is an amazing sight to watch them circle around the family like that. It really just gives you chills seeing all of this and seeing, the
now
silence. Let's watch and listen. We do have a copy of the program. We know there will be some music. We know that Chief Terry Ziegler will speak, the Fraternal Order of Police President Scott Kirkpatrick. We heard from both of them earlier this week. Actually, they spoke about the kind of man Brad Lancaster was. They will both speak today. Also, Officer Chris Blake, someone who worked closely with Detective Lancaster, will speak. We're not expecting the family to get up and speak, but that could obviously change. We do know that they wanted to keep this program short. They said that that's what Brad Lancaster would have wanted. He wouldn't have wanted a lengthy funeral, so we know that they're expecting to keep it around an hour and 15 minutes. We do know some of the pallbearers' names: Jody Berry, Cody Mentor, Brian Cohen, Chris Blake, Clint Swan, Kevin Anderson, Troy Jones, Mike Martin, and no doubt close to Detective Lancaster. And just seeing all of them with their caps on, and just how somber of a scene it is there, it just really shows you the kind of impact he had on our entire community, on all of his co-workers, on his family, his friends. We mentioned his neighbors, and everyone who knew him just said, what a stand-up guy he was. There are, by the way, if you want to make contributions, if you'd like to donate to his memorial fund, we do have information on that here on our website as well. So in just a few seconds, we are going to continue our coverage of Detective Lancaster's funeral. We are going to continue streaming it here live on our website. You can also watch it if you want to flip on the TV as well. 38th The Spot, right at 11 o'clock, we will go live. We'll show you the entire funeral service. We're also going to show you some of the procession immediately following that as well, as they head all the way up to Weston for a private burial up there. That was, of course, his hometown. So we will have all of that for you coming up on 38th The Spot in just a couple of seconds. So stick with us here. Turn on your TV as well.